Good Tuesday morning, everyone, and welcome into today's daily Bible reading for April the 18th. Today we are reading together in Numbers chapter 11 and Numbers chapter 12. Thanks so much for taking the time to read along with me today. We've got a little bit of a read today, and I'm not going to do my usual treatment of the text, kind of working our way through, because I want to use this text as the basis for our lesson coming up on Sunday morning. That's going to really focus on the issues of complaining that are found within this text. But there is one thing that is found right in the middle that we'll spend some time talking about, just making some big Bible picture connections from this text here. So let's read together here in Numbers 11 and Numbers 12. Numbers 11, Numbers 12, let's begin in Numbers 11, verse number 1. Now remember that the people, this is my commentary for those might be listening, the people have been at Mount Sinai for quite some time. Now it is time for them to break camp around Sinai and to begin their journey toward the promised land. Fortunately, as soon as they hit the road, it seems that things go south pretty quickly. Let's see how it's described here in Numbers 11, Numbers 12, beginning Numbers 11, verse number 1. Now the people began complaining openly before Yahweh about hardship. When Yahweh heard, his anger burned, and fire from Yahweh blazed among them and consumed the outskirts of the camp. Then the people cried out to Moses, and he prayed to Yahweh, and the fire died down, so that the place was named Taberah, because Yahweh's fire had blazed among them. The riffraff among them had a strong craving for other food. The Israelites wept again and said, "Who will feed us meat? We remember the free fish we ate in Egypt, along with the cucumbers, melons, leeks, onions, and garlic. But now our appetite is gone. There's nothing to look at but this manna." The manna resembled coriander seed, and its appearance was like that of bdellium. The people walked around it and gathered it. They ground it on a pair of grinding stones or crushed it in a mortar, then boiled it in a cooking pot and shaped it into cakes. It tasted like a pastry cooked with the finest oil. When the dew fell on the camp at night, the manna would fall with it. Moses heard the people, family after family, weeping at the entrance of their tents, and Yahweh was very angry. Moses was also provoked. So Moses said to Yahweh, "Why have you brought such trouble on your servant? Why are you angry with me? And why do you burden me with all these people? Did I conceive all these people? Did I give them birth so that you should tell me, carry them at your breast, as a nursing mother carries a baby, to the land that you swore to give to their ancestors? Where can I get meat for all these people? For they are weeping to me. Give us meat to eat. I can't carry all these people by myself. They are too much for me. If you are going to treat me like this, please kill me right now if I have found favor with you, and don't let me see my misery anymore." Yahweh answered Moses, "Bring me 70 men from Israel known to you as elders and officers of the people. Take them to the tent of meeting and have them stand there with you. Then I will come down and speak with you there. I will take some of the spirit who is on you and put the spirit on them. They will help you bear the burden of the people, so that you do not have to bear it by yourself. Tell the people, consecrate yourselves in readiness for tomorrow, and you will eat meat because you wept in Yahweh's hearing. Who will feed us meat? We were better off in Egypt. Yahweh will give you meat, and you will eat. You will eat, not for 1 day, or 2 days, or 5 days, or 10 days, or 20 days, but for a whole month, until it comes out of your nostrils and becomes nauseating to you, because you have rejected Yahweh who was among you and wept before him. Why did we ever leave Egypt?" But Moses replied, "I'm in the middle of a people with 600,000 foot soldiers. Yet you say, I will give them meat, and they will eat for a month. If flocks and herds were slaughtered for them, would they have enough? Or if all the fish in the sea were caught for them, would they have enough?" Yahweh answered Moses, "Is Yahweh's arm weak? Now you will see whether or not what I promised will happen to you." Moses went out and told the people the words of Yahweh. He brought 70 men from the elders of the people and had them stand around the tent. Then Yahweh descended in the cloud and spoke to him. He took some of the spirit who was on Moses and placed the spirit on the 70 elders. As the spirit rested on them, they prophesied, but they never did it again. 2 men have remained in the camp, one named Eldad and the other Medad. The spirit rested on them, and they were among those listed, but had not gone out to the tent, and they prophesied in the camp. A young man ran and reported to Moses, Eldad and Medad are prophesying in the camp. Joshua, son of Nun, assistant to Moses since his youth, responded, Moses, my Lord, stop them. But Moses asked him, are you jealous on my account? If only all Yahweh's people were prophets, and Yahweh would place his spirit on them. Then Moses returned to the camp along with the elders of Israel. A wind sent by Yahweh came up and blew quail in from the sea. It dropped them all around the camp. They were flying 3 feet off the ground for about a day's journey in every direction. The people were up all day and night and all the next day gathering the quail. The one who took the least gathered 60 bushels, and they spread them out all around the camp. While the meat was still between their teeth before it was chewed, Yahweh's anger burned against the people, and Yahweh struck them with a very severe plague. So they named that place Kibroth Hattaavah, because they buried the people who had craved the meat. From Kibroth Hattaavah, the people moved on to Hazeroth and remained there. Miriam, chapter 12 of Numbers, and Aaron criticized Moses because of the Cushite woman he married, or he had married a Cushite woman. They said, does Yahweh speak only through Moses? Does he not also speak through us? And Yahweh heard it. Moses was a very humble man, more so than any on the face of the earth. Suddenly Yahweh said to Moses, Aaron, and Miriam, you 3, come out to the tent of meeting. So the 3 of them went out. Then Yahweh descended in a pillar of cloud, stood at the entrance to the tent, and summoned Aaron and Miriam. When the 2 of them came forward, he said, listen to what I say. If there is a prophet among you from Yahweh, I make myself known to him in a vision. I speak with him in a dream. Not so with my servant Moses. He is faithful in all my household. I speak with him directly, openly, and not in riddles. He sees the form of Yahweh. So why were you not afraid to speak against my servant Moses? And Yahweh's anger burned against them, and he left. As the cloud moved away from the tent, Miriam's skin suddenly became diseased, resembling snow. And when Aaron turned towards her, he saw that she was diseased, and said to Moses, my Lord, please don't hold against us this sin we have so foolishly committed. Please don't let her be like a dead baby, whose flesh is half eaten away when he comes out of his mother's womb. Then Moses cried out to Yahweh, God, please heal her. And Yahweh answered Moses, if her father had merely spit in her face, wouldn't she remain in disgrace for 7 days? Let her be confined outside the camp for 7 days. After that, she may be brought back in. So Miriam was confined outside the camp for 7 days, and the people did not move until Miriam was brought back in. After that, the people set out from Hazeroth and camped in the wilderness of Paran. And that is Numbers 11 and Numbers chapter 12. Again, I'm going to talk more about this on Sunday as we study together during our worship assembly. So I'm not going to focus too much today on the main issue of complaining that is found within this chapter. I think there are a lot of lessons to be learned about the issue of complaining, some of the root causes of it, some of the ill effects they can have on others, and how Yahweh thinks about his people whenever they complain. So we'll talk about that on Sunday. But I do want to focus on this very interesting story about the elders and the prophesying. It says that they were brought to Moses, and that Yahweh took some of his spirit that was on Moses and gave it to these 70 elders. And it says that they prophesied. And it says that there were 2 who were not in the camp, Eldad and Medad, and they were in the camp, they were in the camp and not with the other elders and Moses. And they were prophesying. So somebody runs from the camp, tells Moses, hey, these 2 men are prophesying. And Joshua, who is very zealous for his mentor Moses, says, we need to stop them. But what does Moses say? He says in verse number 29, he asks, in fact, are you jealous on my account? If only all Yahweh's people were prophets, and Yahweh would turn or would place his spirit on them. What an interesting comment from Moses. And thinking big picture of the Bible story, we see something similar to that is prophesied as going to happen later on in the book of Job. In the book of Job, in chapter 2, Job chapter 2, if I can get over there, did I say Job? I should be saying Joel. Joel chapter 2, beginning in verse 28. In Joel chapter 2, beginning in verse 28, after this is Yahweh speaking. After this, I will pour out my spirit on all humanity. Then your sons and your daughters will prophesy, your old men will have dreams, and your young men will see visions. I will even pour out my spirit on the male and female slaves in those days. I will display wonders in the heavens and on earth, blood, fire, and columns of smoke. The sun will be turned to darkness and the moon to blood before the great and terrible day of Yahweh comes. Then everyone who calls on the name of the Lord will be saved. Everyone who calls on the name of Yahweh will be saved. For there will be an escape for those in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem. As Yahweh promised, among the survivors, Yahweh calls. This text hopefully sounds familiar to us because that's exactly what is quoted by the Apostle Peter in Acts chapter 2, that the Spirit that Moses said, oh, wouldn't it be great for the Spirit to be on all of God's people? Well, Joel prophesies that is going to happen. And Peter there on the day of Pentecost acknowledges that that is what's happening, that God's Spirit is going to come upon all people. And what a wonderful thing that is to know that I very much doubt that either Joshua nor Moses had any idea what these words meant. They probably had no clue. It was the furthest thing from their mind possible. But whenever we think about the Bible story, whenever we think about what's said here, whenever we think about the big picture, how God wants to dwell with his people, how his presence is going to come in the form of his Spirit, and that's going to be with Jesus, of course, but then it's going to be with his people. We make a connection, hopefully, here with what Moses says and how that certainly is that his statement here ends up being a prophecy that, oh, it is going to happen whenever God's Spirit is upon his people. And in order, taking what we've read here in Exodus and Numbers, in order for God's Spirit to be with his people, we must be holy. We must be a sanctified people so that God's presence can dwell with us. And hopefully that is what we are striving to do. One of the ways we can do that is certainly by not being complainers, by being people who seek contentment in everything, recognizing God's goodness toward us. Again, we're going to discuss this text in more detail coming up on Sunday. Hope you can join us Sunday at 11 a.m. for our worship assembly. Again, we'll be studying here from Numbers 11 and Numbers 12 together then. So if you're wanting more detail about that, hang on until Sunday, and we'll have a lesson where we talk more about the details of Numbers 11 and 12 then. Thank you so much for tuning into this reading on this Tuesday. I hope you have a great rest of your Tuesday, and I hope that you will join back in with us tomorrow as we read together from Numbers 13. Numbers 13 is going to be the text for tomorrow. It is going to be the scouting out of Canaan. And unfortunately, things do not go as well as we might hope they would. So we'll read about that tomorrow in Numbers 13. Thanks so much for tuning in today. Take care, and God bless.